Victoria's opposition leader Matthew Guy is calling for the damning corruption report into Victorian Labor to be referred to Victoria Police. He says Premier Daniel Andrews should resign over the matter, as Andrews' government MPs admit they witnessed branch stacking. For more, let's take you live to our Victorian political reporter Simon Love, live in Melbourne. Simon, there's been a lot of reaction over the past 24 hours or so since this report was released.
Certainly has been, Ash, and Matthew Guy, it's been his first opportunity to hold a news conference since the IBAC Watts report handed down, which found a systemic corruption, particularly involving the moderate Labor faction of the Australian Labor Party. This is a report that had 21 recommendations that Premier Daniel Andrews is now accepted, and he says he's going beyond and asking there to be new laws which basically govern all political parties across Victoria, not just Labor, to install new reforms to ensure there's identity checks as to new memberships, as well as some better checks and balances as well to ensure that practices such as branch stacking, which the report went into, do not continue. But Matthew Guy, the opposition leader, he believes that this is quite unfair, that Daniel Andrews seems to be targeting other political parties. And it's not just Matthew Guy with this sentiment. I've heard from a number of crossbenchers that also feel the same today. Here's what Matthew Guy had to say this morning in Geelong.
Daniel Andrews should have resigned yesterday. If he had any decency, he would have resigned. If he had any honour, he would have resigned. If he actually valued transparency and integrity in government, he would have resigned.
Matthew Guy also took aim at comments made by Anthony Albanese on Melbourne radio this morning in regards to this matter. Of course, in the wake of the branch stacking revelations, the federal branch of the ALP intervened in Labor, suspending pre-selections. That was a move by Anthony Albanese and Daniel Andrews to bring in Jenny Macklin and Steve Bracks to do a whole-scale review of the party. Bill Shorten has said on Sky News that he'd like to see some of those rights restored to Labor members, but Anthony Albanese's response this morning was to basically push some of those reforms, but this was Matthew Guy's response to Mr Albanese.
Here we have a corruption commission saying institutional corruption exists in Victorian Labor, and the Prime Minister, Mr Integrity, rolls out and says, oh, there's nothing to see here. You know, stunning. I mean, talk about the lack of self-awareness from the Prime Minister. Talk about the man who's presided over this mess, the Premier. One thing in common, Labor. You cannot trust them with people's money. They rort it, they steal it.
And Simon, we've also heard from a Labor MP today telling how she witnessed branch stacking. What exactly did Natalie Hutchins have to say about her experience with all of that?
Well, Natalie Hutchins, just in the last month, has been appointed Education Minister in the wake of Deputy Premier James Merlino standing down from that senior ministerial position. Natalie Hutchins, now seen as a senior minister, she was the government spokesperson today, the Premier not holding a news conference today, but she admitted that she actually saw branch stacking some decades ago. Of course, Robert Redlich, in his report for IBAC and the Ombudsman, actually noted that branch stacking is a practice that's gone back 70 years. Here's what Natalie Hutchins had to say this morning.
When I got elected 11, 12 years ago now, I could see evidence of that in the outer west of Melbourne, and I think that that's very much dissipated now through the action that's been taken by the Labor Party branch being in administration and the investigation that went on through the Labor Party. I saw that activity was happening. I did report it through the party. And I think that there was some action taken through the membership committee at the time in terms of some of those renewals being debated and rejected, but not on a large party scale, just in some of the local areas that I was aware of it happening. And I'm really glad that we've got substantial change now.
So very frank and honest, Natalie Hutchins there, the new Education Minister in Melbourne. She's a MP out in Melbourne's West, which is an area here in Melbourne that will no doubt be a political target for many for the state election on November the 26th. But Natalie Hutchins was asked whether Daniel Andrews is the right man to be able to lead through these reforms, given that opposition leader Matthew Guy, as we heard earlier, has been calling on him to resign.
The Premier has taken responsibility yesterday. He's put a plan in place. He's accepted the recommendations that have come out of that report, and it's time to make some real change in this space to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Ash, still haven't heard from Marlene Kairouz, who was the other former minister and Labor MP that had adverse findings against her. We've certainly made several attempts to contact Ms Kairouz for a response. Of course, Adam Somyurek, quite fiery, you would have heard him on Newsday yesterday, trying to brush this away. But this report and the integrity issues will no doubt, they probably won't go away ahead of the election in 4 months' time.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. Simon Love in Melbourne, thank you.